This is the Max Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
Yes, it's the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker, presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. There's a lot to talk about today, boy. Oof. Lamar loses, so does Cam. So does Aaron Rodgers, but that meant Phillip Rivers won. Colts look good, huh? Taysom Hill and the Saints D looked good. In case you're wondering about can Taysom Hill be a quarterback, so far so good, and that Saints defense looked great. Tua benched. Burrow finished for the season. Well, that was a nasty injury. There's so much to get into. Mahomes coming back on the Raiders, and Derek Carr, who looked good. That's not the first time he looked good against Mahomes and the Chiefs. Carson Wentz, awful again. People finally seeing what I've seen the last year. Woo, is there stuff to get into. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back, and so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And where to begin? Can't even get into the NBA stuff. See Knicks fans happy that Nerlens Noel was signed. First Julius Randle and now Nerlens Noel. Oh, well, the hits never stop coming. I think you got to start with the best player I've ever seen. The best quarterback I've ever seen, Patrick Mahomes. You know, when you give Patrick, and by the way, Derek Carr played very well, and so have the Raiders, and the Raiders have matched up well with the Chiefs this season. But when you give Patrick Mahomes over a full minute, what do you think is going to happen? Did anyone watching that game, did you have any doubt for a second that Patrick Mahomes, when he got the ball back, wasn't going to score? I knew he'd make it look easy. I didn't know he'd make it look that easy, playing catch with Travis Kelce and stuff. Just like, he's so much better than everyone else. You know, talking to Brett Favre on First Take last week or 2 weeks ago, you know, Mahomes reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers, obviously. That's the closest comp. But Mahomes is bigger and stronger, it looks like, than Rodgers. But he has that electric kind of arm like Favre did, which was even more like Rodgers could thread the needle, but Favre's arm was electric. And he was also a gunslinger, right? As Favre said, Patrick Mahomes, to be a gunslinger, to be Brett Favre minus the turnovers, he's unbelievable. And by the way, for those who would say that the Chiefs looked vulnerable because of the defense, you know, okay, fine. Not only were the Raiders, I think it was Orlovsky on First Take today talking about how the Raiders were built to beat the Chiefs. Like, that's who they were built for, right? And they're divisional rivals and all that. But, like, if you want to talk about the kind of vulnerability of the Chiefs, why start, like, go back to, why just recently? Go back to the beginning of the season. They had to come back on a whole bunch of teams. A lot of teams look good against them. The Chargers and Justin Herbert, a lot of guys look good against them. And they kept coming back on them. And I told everyone at the time when people did their power rankings, who's number one on your? The Chiefs. Yeah, but they didn't look good against this team and that team. The Chiefs. Because go back to last year's playoffs. It was the same thing. If you did power rankings through the playoffs, you'd say after the first playoff game they played, man, but they were down big to the Texans. Came back and won that game. The next playoff game against the Titans, and the Titans had a run game they can control the clock with and all this stuff, came back and beat the Titans. And in the Super Bowl, they're down double digits. They're down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Came back to beat the Niners. What's different between this year and last year? That way. Now, is the Chiefs' defense as good as it was last year? It wasn't. But I'll remind everyone, 2 Super Bowls ago, or 2 playoffs ago, the Chiefs were in the AFC Championship game against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the Patriots. And Tom Brady threw an interception that ended the game. Chiefs are heading to the Super Bowl, except that there was a pre-snap penalty that gave Brady and the Patriots the ball back. Mahomes never got to touch the ball again. If not for that penalty, but for that penalty, the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, where, by the way, the Patriots won the Super Bowl in the lowest scoring Super Bowl in history against the Rams. You mean to tell me the Rams are going to hold the Chiefs' offense down like that? Not a chance. Chiefs would have won a Super Bowl that year. And their defense was not what it was. They remade it the following year when they actually won the Super Bowl, which was last year. And this year, their defense does not look great, did not play a disciplined game, wasn't great against the run, all this stuff. And yet, what happened? They won. And Patrick Mahomes ain't going undefeated. You know, he's going to lose some games. And why not to a divisional rival built to beat them? But when he got that ball back, and there was like 80 seconds on the clock, I'm like, you're giving Patrick Mahomes 80 seconds? Game's over. Here's a question. Would you rather be the root for the team where Patrick Mahomes gets the ball back with 80 seconds down and he has to score a touchdown, has to throw for a touchdown, or score a touchdown? Or would you rather be the team with the lead? Because I'd much rather be the team with Patrick Mahomes. Like, give me that moment in time where there's like a minute left on the clock and I'm down 6 and Patrick Mahomes gets the ball. I'd much rather be that team than the team up 6. Any extra motivation for this game, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt we wanted to win, and I think the guys came to play. And, I mean, like I said, that's a great football team. Teams beat a lot of good football teams, including ourselves. And we needed everything we had to win this football game. And we have a great football team coming up this next week, so we're excited for the challenge this next week and moving on to that one.
You know who Mahomes reminds me of? The way he's a football nerd reminds me of, like, Andrew Luck or, like, Tom Brady or someone like that, like, or Russell Wilson, someone like, when you hear them talk, you're like, that is the kind of plain Janist sort of football talk where you drank the Kool-Aid and you don't even have to pause to answer a question because you spit out the football answer, the team-friendly football answer, the PC football answer. But it's not like, remember Cam Newton 5 years ago? Where any question he was asked, it felt like he had to pause, run it through his mind. How can I answer this? Because I can't tell them what I really think. I got to tell them what they want to hear. How do I do that and still don't sell myself out? And it would come out all, oh, come on, Cam. That's not straight talk. And don't forget, this is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. That's not straight talk. But if you listen to Andrew Luck or Russell Wilson talk, you go, listen to those football nerds. All they think about all day is football, and they drank the Kool-Aid so long ago that any question you ask them, they've internalized it all, spit it right out. Ooh, that's the kind of thing I want to hear from my quarterback. That's Mahomes, real football nerd. So you mean to tell me that the most talented guy ever, because he has LeBron James is Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson had a baby, and it's LeBron James, right? And whenever I do that, it's always like the better those players are, the better the baby winds up. So, like, LeBron James is better than, say, Russell Westbrook. You know who Russell Westbrook is? Kobe Bryant and Allen Iverson had a baby. It's Russell Westbrook. Kobe and AI are not quite MJ and Magic, right? So, you know, Westbrook's not quite LeBron. Mahomes is like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre have had a baby. It's unbelievable. The most talented guy. You mean to tell me the most talented guy also spits out the football answer and it's perfectly politically correct by football kind of ideals, right? In the context of football, it's perfect, you know? Aaron Rodgers sometimes gives you the answer and you're like, he's thinking about this a little too much. How does that play in the locker room? He's talking a little too smart. Give me a little more meathead, you know, right, Aaron Rodgers? You know what I mean. Brett Favre gives that to you just right, but then with the game on the line, he's gunslinging, and it's like, oh, hold on. Brett, come on, man. It's not just you out there. Your teammates, I know that stuff that you do gives your team a chance to win in games they might lose, but maybe you can win this game if you just don't make that mistake. Mahomes is the combination of both those. Knows exactly what to say. He's the perfect football, you know, give you the football answer, face of the franchise quarterback. And it's totally like he believes everything he's saying. And then he gets out on the field and he's totally electric and basically mistake-free. Like, no one's perfect. But you can't get... He's 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions this year. You understand? He started his career 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, should have won the Super Bowl. Pre-snap penalty means they wind up losing in overtime where he doesn't get to touch it in the AFC Championship game. And he follows that up by improving his touchdown to interception ratio and winning the Super Bowl, coming from behind double digits in 3 consecutive games in the second half. And he follows that up by improving. He might wind up throwing more touchdowns than he did in year 1 with a better ratio than in year 2. He's 27-2 right now, TD to interception ratio. And that's like, the numbers don't tell you the story with this guy. You actually got to watch him. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. Meantime, on the other end of the spectrum, by the way, do you hear before I move on, hear what Andy Reid said about Patrick Mahomes? Give me a minute and a half. I'm pretty good right there. We can roll. He's like, I'm down a score, but Patrick Mahomes, I got Patrick Mahomes. I'm good. Yeah. And we all know it. We'd all rather have Mahomes down 6 with a minute left than be the team up 6. 888-SAY-ESPN. Tell me I'm wrong. Meantime, on the other end of the spectrum, the Eagles, Doug Peterson, head coach. First, he's at, I mean, the headlines you're seeing today. See, I watch this stuff. The headlines you're seeing today are that benching Carson Wentz would send the wrong message, right? Peterson said that Wentz would remain the starting quarterback for Monday night's game against the Seahawks, in spite of Wentz's continued struggles. 21-35, 235 yards, 2 TDs, and 2 interceptions. But that makes him sound better than he was, including a pick 6 in Sunday's loss to the Browns, right? But here's the real question that I want you guys to hear the answer to. This tells me everything I need to know, because I've heard a lot over the last couple of years. And by the way, I was a huge Wentz supporter in 2017. In 2017, I was saying he and not Tom Brady is the MVP at the moment he got hurt late in the season. I thought he was the best player in football that year. And he was great on the money down, great on third down, best in the league. And now he's the worst in the league on the third down. But I started hearing things about Jeffrey Lurie and how Wentz has a direct line to the owner and how the team is scared of Wentz, how his teammates are. Now listen to Doug Peterson, Eagles head coach, Super Bowl winning coach, who didn't do it with Wentz. He put them in a position by winning a lot of regular season games, but it was Nick Foles who took over before the end of the season and won every single playoff game, including the Super Bowl, where Nick Foles was Super Bowl MVP. And the following season, they were sub 500 and dead in the water when Foles took over the team. They caught fire, they made the playoffs, and they went on the road and won a playoff game at Soldier Field against a Bears team a lot of people liked to get out of the NFC because of their defense that year. And he followed that up by going to New Orleans, where it's really hard to win. And if his receiver turns around, Foles hit him in the chest, probably wins that game too. That's a title defense. Even if you don't ultimately go back-to-back winning Super Bowls, almost no one has ever done that. But that's a valiant title defense. That's a valiant effort. That was all Nick Foles. Nick Foles just ran the offense Peterson wanted to run. Does Carson Wentz? Hey, coach, if you wanted to bench Wentz, could you make that decision on your own? If you get to that spot, whether you don't start him or you bench, I think you're sending a wrong message to your football team that the season's over, and that's a bad message. And we have to work through this. Times, when times get tough, it's sometimes that might be the easy thing to do. And this business is about work. This business is about detailing, having ownership, things I talk about with the team, and that's what we got to do. That's coaches and players. That's not one guy. It's bigger. This sport's bigger than one guy, and we all have a hand in it, and we all have to fix it. What kind of non-answer is that? Everyone heard that, right? That's a dude who's not trying to answer the question. Coach, this is a straightforward question to a Super Bowl winning coach. It wasn't 20 years ago he won it. It was a couple of years ago. Won the Super Bowl. Out-coached Belichick. Well, at least he beat Belichick. The question, coach, it's very simple. If you wanted to bench Wentz, could you make that decision on your own? And the fact that he answered it that way tells you everything you need to know. The answer is no. Obviously, he can't make that decision on his own. Because if he could, he would say, yes, I can make that decision, and I am choosing not to. But he chose not to give you that answer because he's covering. Who's he covering for? The GM? Is it Howie Roseman? Or is it the owner, Jeffrey Lurie? My money's on the owner. Wentz got a direct line to the owner. Why else do you think Wentz would get up there and talk about a couple weeks ago, after another terrible performance? Why do you think he'd get up there and say, hey, this is probably the line I'm going to have to walk my whole career. I'm never going to get that just right? Like knowing when not to try to extend the play. That's the way, here it was key, the way we do things around here. What? The way we do things around here? That's why you're bad. And let me tell you something, and I told this to Dan Orlovsky on First Take today. The reason he's in this situation, the reason Wentz is in this situation is because of Dan Orlovsky and people like him. Because Wentz really needed, well, let me start at the beginning. Let's start with the facts, shall we? Through 10 games, Carson Wentz has been outplayed by every single opponent this year. 10 games. It's nearly impossible to do. How are you outplayed by 10 straight opponents? And I've made this point in the past, he hasn't played a who's who of quarterbacks this year. He's played backups mainly, third stringers, and Daniel Jones twice. Wentz is the lowest rated starting quarterback with at least 250 throws in the NFL. He has 18 turnovers. Where do you think that ranks in the league? It's the most in the league. And now he's thrown 14 interceptions in 10 games. Remember, we had Casey Joyner, the football scientist, on Friday. You know what he said? Back in the day, what separated Tom Brady and Peyton Manning was their good decision rate, right? They very rarely made poor decisions. Nowadays, everyone's making good decisions. You got to make good decisions and have talent. And the quarterbacks who make good decisions don't even have that big an advantage because so many quarterbacks are making good decisions. Not Wentz. 14 interceptions in 10 games. He has more turnover-worthy plays than any other player in football. Because not every play he makes that's turnover-worthy results in a turnover. Now, since he's entered the league, he has more fumbles than any player. He had a fumble yesterday. He has 10 fumbles in 10 games. He was the top-rated third-down quarterback, as I mentioned, in the entire league in 2017 by passer rating. He's thrown to convert exactly 1 third down now in his last 9 quarters. On the money down. Last 9 quarters, 1 conversion. He's being paid $108 million. By the way, I'm not down. I don't tell a player I don't expect the world out of Carson Wentz because he's not good. Carson Wentz has enormous talent. I was a huge supporter of his. Little by little, that has been chipped away through his play. Do you think that I was just I started saying this in the middle of last year, and then suddenly it turned out to be true and I was lucky? No, I noticed his regression. This is year 5 for this dude. Worst completion percentage and quarterback rating of his entire career in year 5. But worse than that, his confidence is shot. You can see the confidence is shot. And decision-making is awful. Bad at situational football. Doesn't see the field. What he sees, you can see he doesn't trust. No internal clock. It's shot. Mechanics all over the place. Should have had more than 2 interceptions yesterday. So why do I blame it on Orlovsky? Because at the end of last season, when he was getting healthy against the NFC East, he won 4 games against the worst division in the history of football until this year's NFC East. Instead of because he was being praised and lauded for that, an MVP candidate, he was awful. He was turning the ball over on 3rd down in the 4th quarter all the time, and they were lucky to recover. And then he makes some plays against the worst teams you've ever seen. And oh my God, Wentz. So what he should have done in the offseason is soul searching. Carson Wentz should have been thinking, I got to clean this up. I got to get better. But instead, he's reading his press clippings and talking about this is just the way we do things around here. Now, what's the future for Wentz? You need to fix his mechanics, his internal clock, his decision-making, the way he sees the field, his understanding of situational football, now his shattered confidence. You need to deprogram him, and he has to relearn everything in year 5 with a $108 million contract, talking about this the way we do things around here. I told you 3 or 4 weeks ago, you got to sit him down for a game, not because Jalen Hurts gives you a better chance to win. He doesn't. But because Wentz has to be accountable to the team the way McNabb was held accountable when he was benched during the season one year. I forgot already what year it was, but he was sat down during the season, got to the NFC Championship game. I told you 3-4 weeks ago to do it. They didn't do it. Too late now. Even if you sit him down, it's too late. There's too much damage done. Here's my conclusion. The Carson Wentz of 2017 is gone, never to return. When Jeffrey Lurie asks himself what happened to my quarterback, he needs to look in the mirror. Max Kellerman Show, big weekend in the NBA. But who made the biggest moves and the best moves? Plus, I'm going to get to your calls, 888-SAY-ESPN. Businesses have had to be flexible this year, of course. I did not want to see a replay. I don't know if they showed one or not. I couldn't look at it because that leg, I've seen it once, looked like it was going in the wrong direction. And when I heard ACL, I thought, okay, phew, that was lucky. No. MRI, according to Adam Schefter, revealed more damage than anticipated. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow tore his ACL, MCL, and suffered other structural issues in his knee as well. Oof. He needs to be like Steve Austin. They're going to have to rebuild that whole knee. The bionic quarterback. Oh, it's such a shame. Joe Burrow was so fun to watch and so excellent at such a young age and such a promising career. And the effectiveness of the rest of that career, it seems to me, is now in jeopardy. And because the Bengals couldn't protect him, and look, the Bengals have a bad offensive line. Most bad teams who pick number 1 overall do. And even those who would say, well, that's why you put kind of a tackling dummy back there for a while, and then you let the young kid come in. Well, you know, Kurt Warner, who turned out to still be a great quarterback, was used that way by the Giants, and then Eli eventually took over, but Eli got hit a lot behind the line. He's just like he was very tough and lucky that he never had to suffer a catastrophic injury. You know, it's just the way it goes. Those young quarterbacks, Eli and Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger, all played and played well pretty early in their careers. And Eli and Rivers were Iron Men for years. And Roethlisberger, you know, he got hit a lot more. He's bigger, stronger, stood and took more shots. But he's still playing. He's 38 years old, just came back from a catastrophic injury. He's playing very well. You're going to get hit. It's just some of it with the NFL is the luck of the draw, man. Some of it, like the difference between a career-ending or altering injury or a season-ending injury and someone who avoids it, some of it's just luck. They didn't get tackled in such a way that their knee caved in. Ooh, that's brutal. You feel so bad for Joe Burrow and Bengals fans, especially Joe Burrow. Oh, my God. And he so clearly had it. So clearly had it from the very beginning. Well, we'll see what they can do. They're going to have to do a lot of work on that knee. He's going to have a long, arduous comeback ahead of him. It's not like that's never been done before. And, you know, everyone's rooting for him, of course. But to me, this sounds like more than just a season-ending kind of injury. This sounds like a next season-altering kind of injury, at least. That's just sucks. The Lakers, on to happier news, finalized a 2-year deal with Marc Gasol. They traded JaVale McGee, who, by the way, JaVale McGee tweeted at me about how I was taking shots at the Lakers for, Pelinka. I was very critical of. And the JaVale McGee signing, all right, $4 million on JaVale McGee. You can, I guess at that price, it wasn't bad, but McGee wasn't very good and all this. And McGee said, he tweeted at me, he's going to show me, and he was right. He was right. He played well and was easily worth the contract. And then some. And it was JaVale and a future second-round pick to the Cavs to help clear way for Marc Gasol, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. I don't know if Gasol, is that a Woj bomb? That's maybe a little Woj, it's a Woj projectile of some kind. I'm not sure that it's a bomb. The former Raptors and Grizzlies center Gasol is set to make the veteran minimum. That's $2.56 million, according to ESPN's Bobby Marks. That's a nice pickup. Gasol is no longer like really part of the kind of nucleus of the team's offense, but he still can be on defense, and he can stretch the floor. That's just a nice piece to have. And by the way, when you see a guy like Dennis Schroeder sign with the Lakers, like if you saw a team pick up Schroeder and Gasol as pieces of a rotation that were going to get real minutes, you might not be like, oh my God, those are amazing moves. You'd say, okay, solid basketball moves. But when you have LeBron and AD, all of a sudden those kind of guys are murder for the opposition. Because when you have LeBron on your team, not to mention with a guy like AD, if anyone hits a shot, you're like, well, if so-and-so is hitting a shot with these two other guys, not a lot you can do. But Schroeder is coming off. He was always a good, point guard with looks like upside. But, when you're on a bad team, when you're on a Magic, and you're putting up numbers in losing efforts, you're like, are those empty calories? Especially if you're not a defender. But Schroeder played defense. I was very surprised. He played at least when I watched him, he looked good defensively. Like good defensively. Not just like he's trying to play defense. Like he was an effective defender. And if you're playing defense and also hitting your shots at a better than normal clip, and you're a guy with Schroeder's kind of talent, that is a real nice player. You know what that is? That's a league average starting point guard. And before it sounds like I'm damning him with faint praise, that's a great thing. If you're a league average, it's like being a league average quarterback in the NFL. You got to be pretty good. And with a piece like Gasol, now you have spacing with a big who can also play defense. And you have another player, maybe Schroeder won't be Rondo in the playoffs, right? Because playoff Rondo's special. But in the regular season, he'll be better. He'll be way better than Rondo in the regular season. And I expect Gasol to be more useful to this team than JaVale McGee. And Danny Green, who's a nice player. I'm a big fan of Danny Green's, but he did not have a very good year for the Lakers. Lakers got better. They're going to need to get better because the Nuggets are coming. Although the Warriors, oof. But the Nuggets are looking good. And there are other teams in the Western Conference, including the Mavericks, who, if they can stay healthy, are going to be a problem. The Clippers are still going to be a problem. Remember, I was pointing to the Lakers and thinking that they wouldn't win in year one, but they would win this upcoming season. Because the first time superstars get thrown together, sometimes it takes a year. Like, the first year, they're a powerhouse. But in that next season, LeBron has experienced this twice. Once in Miami. And then once in Cleveland. Then the following season, he won the whole thing. But, in fact, that happened to the Clippers. As much as I said, look, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were just kind of parachuted into a functional team with a real head coach and ownership that was very competent and a really, a good team. But, in fact, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari were ripped out of that team, and then those two superstars were kind of parachuted in, and they had chemistry issues. But the Clippers are coming. It's going to get more competitive in this upcoming season. The Lakers needed reinforcements. They've made smart moves to get them. And that's to say nothing of the reigning sixth man of the year, Montrezl Harrell, defecting off the Clippers, going to the Lakers. 2-year deal for the mid-level exception. $9.25 million in year one, $9.72 in year two. But that's the kind of player Harrell is. Harrell's also a nice piece. He got abused by Jokic, but like a lot of guys will get abused by Jokic. But all of a sudden, you look at the Lakers, you go, hold on, who's coming in? Montrezl Harrell and Marc Gasol and Schroeder. These are very useful pieces to a team with a nucleus of LeBron and AD. Tatum gets the max extension. Duh, of course he will, and he's worth every penny. As did Donovan Mitchell, worth every penny. No, not Donovan Mitchell. Who am I saying? Was it Donovan Mitchell? Who else got the max extension?
Jason Tatum?
Well, I'll tell you coming up. It was Tatum and someone else who got a max extension, and they were worth every penny. Say it again? I said Donovan Mitchell. I thought Donovan Mitchell was already locked up to the max extension. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, Austin Rivers, 3 years, $10 million deal with the Knicks. The Knicks, I have to say, I make a lot of fun of the Knicks, right? Like, Nerlens Noel. Oh, they got Nerlens Noel and Julius Randle, right? Austin Rivers, but they're not making stupid moves. What I notice about the Knicks is they still can't get anyone to take Dolan's money. But they're not doing things that are going to hurt them long term as they used to do. I can't really be critical of any of the moves they're making. I just can't stand Dolan because he's the least competent owner in the NBA. And he owns the team I rooted for as a child. Is it time to start wondering about Lamar Jackson's play? No doubt coming up. I didn't take any calls. I got to take calls. Devin, who's subbing in for Raj today. Devin, you got to have the calls up on the screen so I can see what's going on.
I just took them off. You want them back on right now? We can take a call. Yeah. All right.
Are that much closer to taking the NFC West, which, of course, they're going to win. They're also going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think everyone knows that. By the way, it's odd, but before last night, Mahomes had never thrown a touchdown pass, a go-ahead touchdown pass in the final 2 minutes of a game. That's one of those weird stats because he's orchestrated so many comebacks already. Threw a 22-yard touchdown pass to a wide-open Travis Kelce with 28 seconds left to give the Chiefs a 35-31 lead over the Raiders, who handed the Chiefs their only loss this year and came very close to handing them another one. Derek Carr being more aggressive down the field against the Chiefs than he is against other teams. And by the way, that's what you got to do with the Chiefs. According to Casey Joyner, the football scientist, who appears here on the Max Kellerman Show every other week, you gotta lure them into a shootout because that gives you the best chance to win. They still have a plus 500 record in those kind of games, the Chiefs, but it's not like their record in all other kinds of games where they practically never lose. They're now 9-1 on the seasons. They have a 3-game lead over the 6-4 Raiders in the AFC West. Coach Andy Reid, head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. I've got Pat Mahomes. You give me a minute and a half, I'm pretty good right there. We can roll. Are the Raiders the only team equipped to beat the Chiefs? Told you at the top of hour one, Patrick Mahomes, boy, that dude not only makes fewer mistakes than everyone else, has more talent than everyone else, a more electric arm, more accurate, big, strong, can also run. But he has that football nerd, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, I drank the Kool-Aid when I was a little kid. And if you ask me any question, I will always make it about the team and give you the answer that avoids headlines and makes you feel good about me. And it's not because he has to think about what the media or the fans want to hear. It's because he has internalized all that stuff. Hardcore football nerd. Patrick Mahomes, best player, best quarterback I've ever seen. Any extra motivation for this game?
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt we wanted to win, and I think the guys came to play. And, like I said, that's a great football team. Teams beat a lot of good football teams, including ourselves. And we needed everything we had to win this football game. And we have a great football team coming up this next week, so we're excited for the challenge this next week and moving on to that one.
So you need a little Southern twang in your voice, a little bit, and also you need to say football where it doesn't belong. You're just saying a team or... you call it always add football. He has this whole thing down, and he ain't trying. This is who he is. These are like what you want to lead your franchise is, as Brett Favre said when he told me on First Take, for a gunslinger, this dude doesn't make mistakes. Favre knows a gunslinger when he sees it. Mahomes is a gunslinger, but he's a gunslinger minus the downside. Right? You take a risk. It's because there's a big reward, but there's also a risk of downside. He somehow eliminates the downside, Mahomes. Meantime, Ravens lost their second straight game. And by the way, Tannehill, A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, Tannehill has some playmakers, running the ball, catching the ball. He has a defense. And Tannehill's good. He's really good. But so is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, are you worried about Lamar Jackson? Well, let's see. The league has now adjusted to Lamar. Let's see Lamar adjust back. This is what happens. If he can adjust back and return to kind of great, at least regular season play, he can go on to be a great quarterback. If not, he'll be a memorable quarterback who wasn't able to make that second adjustment. I talk about this in boxing a lot. I've seen fights between two guys where superficially they look the same, but one guy can make that second and third and fourth adjustment, and the other guy can't. Andre Ward versus Chad Dawson, or Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah. All good fighters. But Floyd and Andre were great fighters. They could make a second adjustment, third adjustment, many adjustments as you need them to make. They'll keep making them. Is Lamar like that? Is he going to be an all-time great? Or is he going to be remembered as a very talented, not flash in the pan, but guy who was limited in some respects? He's 1-2 in his last 3 games when leading by 10-plus points. Won his first 21 career starts when leading by 10-plus points. And part of that is like, Ozzie Newsome identifies him, and Harbaugh builds a team around him, or like runs his team around Lamar Jackson. He was put in a position to succeed, and the league is adjusting. Now are those same people who put him in those positions, and is Lamar going to readjust and succeed? How'd you lose this game, Lamar?
We just had 2 losses in a row. Games we should have won. We had little hiccups in the game, but we still got to keep fighting through it. That team, it looked like that team wanted it more than us. They was playing physical. When we went up, I feel like, we just took our foot off the gas, but we just got to keep it going.
Lamar has a very likable personality. You can see why guys like playing with him. Doesn't make excuses. Calls out his own team and his own effort. But you got to be consistently accurate down the field. If Lamar Jackson can be, and remember, he was a very accurate passer, most accurate in NFL history statistically as a 21-year-old. That doesn't guarantee the trajectory takes him in such a place where at 23 he's also the most accurate. But it does mean he has something in there. And if he can be accurate down the field, all those running quarterbacks. You know why Trubisky doesn't have a job right now? Can't be accurate down the field. That's it. Doesn't have a job. Or he's not as a starter until Foles got hurt. Lamar Jackson, can you be accurate down the field consistently, yes or no? Let's get the whole shooting match. Meantime, you know what the biggest story I've barely gotten into today? The Saints. Taysom Hill. 30 years old, hasn't thrown a lot of passes, was always seen as a gadget player. Because you look at Taysom Hill, and at least I go, why isn't he the best player in football? Again, like in certain ways, the best football player in the world is Odell Beckham Jr., and Taysom Hill is like second in certain ways. And by that I mean, or Lamar Jackson's up there too. By that I mean, Odell, they can do everything on a football field. Odell can kick field goals if you need him to. Odell could punt if you needed him to. He can throw a spiral left-handed 50 yards. Taysom Hill can, but Odell is not a gadget player because he has one ability, the ability to catch the ball, that is pitched so high, that he's a great receiver. Does Taysom Hill have one ability like that? He's very fast, 4.40. He's rugged and strong. He looks like he could block, right? He can catch the ball. And he can throw the ball. He's just an athlete, a great athlete. But if none of those skills are pitched high enough, you're a gadget player. The whole thing with Taysom Hill came down to, can he read defenses? Can he process information quickly enough? He started out slow in that game. He was okay. Second half was better than the first. And if you're a Saints fan, you're happy about that. He knows the offense very well. He's been on the team for years now. He's studied essentially under Drew Brees, not to mention Sean Payton. And he doesn't have the greatest arm in the world, but he can throw the ball. He showed that, and he could adjust as the game goes on. But that wasn't, that's the headline because it's a huge story for the Saints. They're going to be fine until Brees gets back. But the story was the defense. I keep bringing it up, but they picked up Quan Alexander at the deadline. And Quan Alexander, the reason the Niners dealt him is not because he can't play. He has a big fat contract because he can play. That's why they dealt him. The Niners ain't going anywhere after the Garoppolo injury, right? And even before, they looked a little iffy. But the Saints know right now we got to win. They picked up a nice linebacker. And the Saints always had, compared to the other dynamic offensive teams, they were good against the run by the standards of those kind of teams. Saints defense looked great. You could talk to me about the Falcons O-line. I get it. The Saints defensive backs looked great. And I get the offensive line on the other team. That has a lot to do with it too. How much time do the receivers have? All that stuff. But maybe it's just that they're playing the Falcons. But the Saints defense looked excellent. If that defense is for real, if that defense is 75% of what we saw yesterday, yeah, the Saints are going to get out of the NFC. They have a hell of a shot. Like the Bucks also have a real defense, and the Packers and the Seahawks, they have dynamic quarterbacks. Bobby Marks, ESPN NBA front office insider, joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Bobby, are you there?
Max, how are you?
Bobby, I'm doing great. Do you believe that the Portland Trailblazers had the best offseason? Why do you believe that?
Not only did they have the best offseason, I also think they're the second best team in the Western Conference. How's that? I think,
Wow.
I do. I mean,
they can't play defense.
That's right. I love their depth, Max. That's where I'm going with. I'm going with Rodney Hood, bringing him back, a healthy Rodney Hood, Derek Jones. You get Cantor. I get it. I know defensive liability here. Harry Giles, Carmelo Anthony. I really like what they did with their depth here, as far as how they were kind of able to patch holes, and you still have Lillard, McCollum, Gary Trent, Nurkic. I just look at teams like the Clippers and Denver. I think they took a little bit of a step back as far as what they lost in this offseason here. But I will say this, though, is there is a lot of separation between the Lakers at number one and basically kind of everyone else.
Yeah, I disagree with you about the Trailblazers. I see what you mean. They have a dynamic offense. They got deeper, and as we can see, like sometimes against tired starters, you'd rather have your bench guys than even starters because they become stars against tired legs. And if you have depth, that's a good thing. The Lakers added Wes Matthews, and they lose Danny Green. So Danny Green, who I like a lot, was not super effective for them. But they bring in a guy who can maybe do some of the same things, 3-and-D. Dennis Schroeder. They're going to lose Rondo, but Schroeder is, we'll see if he can be playoff Rondo, but regular season Schroeder last season was way better than regular season Rondo. Montrezl Harrell's a nice piece as part of a rotation, and Marc Gasol is a stretch five. He can stretch the floor, and he can still defend. How did they make all this work from a contract standpoint? It seems like they have more money to spend than everyone else. How did they do this?
Well, they had guys that sacrificed. Wes Matthews came in at the $3.6 million biannual exception. Montrezl Harrell was at the $9.3 million mid-level, so they had those two exceptions there. Schroeder was in a trade, of course, and then Mark came in at the veteran minimum exception, which is at $2.6 million. So that's the beauty of when you have a championship team, that veterans are willing to kind of sacrifice financially to come try to win a championship here. And I liked all the moves. I'm not as sold on Gasol as a lot of people. I just looked at him last year. Mm-hmm. I didn't think he had much gas left in the tank, especially in the playoffs here. So we'll see when we get going here if we see a little bit of a different Marc Gasol. But yeah, and then you bring Markieff Morris back, of course, on the veteran minimum exception today too. So they basically
LeBron does this in every town he's in. He did this in Cleveland. He did it in Miami. He gets all the good players who used to be really good and still have something left to take virtually no money to win a championship.
Five guys, I think, will cost you like $20 million this year, right? I mean, that's amazing, and that's the beauty of. You have LeBron or ED, and guys want to go, try to win a championship.
Got to tip my hat to two people, Bobby. One, Rob Pelinka, who I was very skeptical about, but he's pushed all the right buttons, and he's made it all work. He's done an excellent job. And it's great being wrong about stuff. You learn something,
Makes you better, doesn't it? It makes
I love
you better.
it. Yeah, it does. It does. No, I was wrong about Pelinka. I thought, oh, come on. What's he doing? He knew better than I did. That's one. And two, Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss inherits the franchise from her father, who's by so much the greatest owner in the history of American team sports. It's embarrassing. He's lapping the field a couple times. And his dying wish, essentially, is I want this team, this family business, to keep my family together. And he therefore puts Jeannie in charge of business and Jim in charge of basketball. And Jeannie wanted to respect his wishes, stayed with Jim probably a year longer than she should have, did everything she could to try to make it work. When she finally saw, look, I have responsibility to L.A. and the Lakers to do this right, and she lets go of Jim essentially in that role. Since that moment, in other words, when the handcuffs came off Jeannie Buss, and talk about handcuffs to have on you, you're being a good daughter and family member, right, to your late great father. But as soon as she took the handcuffs off, 3 years later, they're working on a repeat, Bobby. Like, oh my God, what a stewardship the Lakers are still under Jeannie Buss. What do you make of how Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets are building their team? As I've often mentioned, the irony of Jordan is he is the Michael Jordan of bad owners. But what do you think about what he's done so far this offseason?
I'm not a big fan of the Gordon Hayward signing. I really am not. I mean, I'm not comfortable committing $120 million for him. Maybe I would be comfortable in 1 year at a pretty good number, but I just get concerned on that back end of that contract, years 2, 3, and 4, and I just think it's an overpay, and they're paying for what the Gordon Hayward of the past, and maybe not even the Boston past, maybe more of the Charlotte past. I mean, the Utah past, where he was really good. And I get it, I know, and I've been in rebuilds, and you get to a point, Max, where you just like want to wave the white flag and do something as an overpay and go from a 30-win team to a 40-win team and compete for an 8 seed here. And I think that's kind of where Charlotte is doing that. It's kind of it's not a Mitch Kupchak type move, because Mitch has been up front and basically said, hey, we're not going to spend our cap space. We're going to focus on Devontae Graham and PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, guys like that. We're going to draft and just kind of build it.
LaMelo Ball.
We're going to build it organically, and then all of a sudden you come in with 4 for $120 for Gordon Hayward.
You know what I think it is, Bobby? I think it is, first of all, I agree. This is the kind of move the Knicks would normally make, hilariously make. Michael Jordan now makes the Knicks not the worst run franchise. Well, they have a worse owner than Jordan, but at least they have more competent people in their front office now. I'm less of a fan of Mitch Kupchak now than I used to be, based on the last, let's say, 10 or 12 years. But it's like the Catfish Hunter signing for the Yankees in the 70s. They wanted to get to respectable, so they overpay for an old guy who helped them get to respectable, knowing the back end of the deal wouldn't be good. Of course, there's a cap in the NBA, which makes it different. But one thing I liked about Gordon Hayward on Boston is his passing was excellent in the starting lineup. And so maybe, Bobby, maybe he ages a little bit better than you might think. Like, of course not as a max contract player, but as a useful starter to a team with a lot of young talent. What do you think about that?
He fits a veteran role, and when you kind of, he becomes probably more of the number 1 or 2 option than 3 or 4 that he was in Boston here. But this is kind of we'll see where this is 3 years from now or even next year. The other thing I didn't like either, they stretched that Batum contract, and they're basically got, about stretch provision, when you got Noah on your books in New York and Dang on the books in LA, that money just sits there, Max, and they've got $9 million sitting there for the next 3 years.
It's too bad about Batum. Batum, before he got paid and before he went to was so good, and then I don't know, he stopped looking interested to me. That's a shame, because I thought that was a good pickup when they, or at least when Batum was a free agent, when he got his contract, I thought, ooh, that's money well spent. No, it wasn't. Bobby Marks, ladies and gentlemen, ESPN NBA front office insider. Always appreciate you coming on,
Max.
Bobby. Thank you. I keep saying I'm going to get to the calls. I'm going to. Ray in Los Angeles wants to talk about Marc Gasol, and Travis in Virginia Beach about rookie contracts, and DJ in Denver about the Colts, and Diego in Queens about Aaron Rodgers, and Andre in Massachusetts about Vrabel, Alex in Pennsylvania about Carson Wentz. Oh, there's so many juicy topics today. Meantime, are the Packers good enough to win a Super Bowl? Running backs Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins tested positive for COVID-19. Ravens have a short week playing the Steelers on Thursday night. The facility was closed today. Here's my question. When Lamar Jackson talks about they wanted it more than us, look, it's speculative, but I watched Cam Newton play. And remember, this is a different example, I understand, and the Pats just lost again. Now they're 6-4, but they looked good week 1. They beat the Dolphins by 2 scores. Week 2, they lost to Seattle narrowly, who was a powerhouse at the time. Week 3, they beat the Raiders by multiple scores, right? Like, they were cruising along, and then they lose. Then Cam gets COVID, and they play the Chiefs, but Cam's out, and then Cam comes back, and they lose to the Broncos, and they lose to the Niners, and they don't look good. And I speculated at the time, maybe Cam is feeling the effects of COVID. Even if you get the flu, right? And COVID ain't just the flu, but if you get the flu, you might be out of sorts for a week or so. But COVID, they talk about brain fog and all kinds of stuff. And by the way, Cam finally brought it up last week. And I thought, that doesn't sound like an excuse to me. This dude hadn't been making excuses. I think that's real. I thought the same thing just from where I was sitting. And then he started playing better. The farther away you get from the period of time where he had COVID, the better he's played. Well, maybe that has something to do, if members of the team have COVID, maybe that has something to do with a Ravens team that looked tired as the game went on. They just looked flat and out of it. Colts come from behind to beat the Pack in overtime. You know, because of Phillip Rivers, I forgot that I wasn't watching the Chargers. So I thought, well, here it comes. The inevitable collapse. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, no. Phillip Rivers ain't playing for the Chargers anymore. They could actually win this game. And they did. Nevertheless, the Packers, they're Super Bowl contenders. They are. They're not in, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. Out of the NFC, I like the Saints or maybe the Bucks. Because the Chiefs have Mahomes and the Saints and Bucks have defenses to go with their offense. The Seahawks and the Packers don't really have defenses, but the Packers' defense is middle pack type of defense. It's not like if it's bottom third, it's just barely bottom third. And as long as you have a good enough defense, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got a chance. And by the way, they're the Valdez-Scantling fumble away from winning that game. And looking pretty good right now, right? Yeah, they're contenders. Alex in Pennsylvania, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. Alex in Pennsylvania. Andre in Massachusetts, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Yeah, Max, thanks for taking my call. I just want to chime in briefly about the Ravens and the Titans. I thought that John Harbaugh was out of line, brushing off Vrabel. Post-game, there was something, before the game, they thought that there was a disrespect that happened. Point of fact is this. In 2 money games back-to-back.
Hold on, wait a minute. Let's slow down. You're talking about John Harbaugh taking issue with, who was it?
Mike Vrabel.
No. The player. First, Harbaugh had an issue with...
Malcolm Butler.
Come on. Malcolm Butler. He had an issue with Malcolm Butler. He thought he was dancing on the logo, right? Like, that's how it started. Then Vrabel comes over to Harbaugh.
Yeah, I'm just talking about...
And you think Harbaugh was out of line?
I thought he was out of line post-game after Derrick Henry did what he did in the handshake, basically brushing him off, walking off, exchanging words back and forth. To me, looking at this, listen, Tennessee has taken Baltimore's pride and joy in 2 straight money games. That's what you need to be focusing on, A. And then, B, these 2 back-to-back losses for the Ravens pushed them out of the playoff race in the AFC. So you making this mountain out of a molehill with Vrabel, you need to step your game up, in my opinion.
Andre, you brought me around on this one. First of all, both coaches said, no, there was nothing there. We shook hands. Everything was fine after the game. So I thought, well, you're making something out of nothing. But I have to say, you are persuasive. That's right. Why is Harbaugh making a big deal about who cares who dances where? Like, knock it off. You should be focused on the fact that this team beat you in the playoffs and just beat you again. Andre has a good point. There's news from Max Kellerman Nation. Andre just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. It's not that the facts themselves say that behavior from Harbaugh is out of line. It's that given the circumstances, why is the coach getting caught up in all this nonsense? You know what? You don't like someone stepping on some logo? Win the game. Then they won't do it. Diego in Queens, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
What's up, Max? How are you?
Go ahead, Diego.
God, it's tough to get to you. But anyways, let me say this. Even before you were on and Greeny, you guys keep talking about Mahomes. I get it. I get what he is, but in my opinion, there's no more valuable player to his team than Aaron Rodgers. I know you saw that comeback with Mahomes last night, but if you watched the same Packers game, did you see that throw that Rodgers made 60 yards in the air? That is
Rodgers is unbelievable. Rodgers and Mahomes are in their own category. I'm not going to put Mahomes in a separate category than Aaron Rodgers. The strongest argument that Mahomes is not the Michael Jordan of football is that Aaron Rodgers exists. And the difference between Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers is not, say, the difference between Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, which was clear. Larry Bird, before Jordan came around, was oh, my God, that guy's the best thing I've ever seen. And then Jordan came around, and it was okay, that guy's clearly better. Even Bird knew it, right? I wouldn't say it's like that, because Rodgers was the best I'd ever seen. Then Mahomes came around, and I thought, this is even better than Rodgers, but it's not clear. It's like by a very little bit. He's a little bigger and stronger and a little more of a gunslinger, maybe a little more electricity in his arm. Maybe his teammates rally around him a little more. But physically, it's not like he can do anything Rodgers can't do. So I know what you mean. And in terms of MVP for his team, I don't think MVP, like this happens a lot. The guy with the better teammates gets penalized. Well, he has Travis Kelce and he has this one and that one. Tyreek Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire now. Once upon a time it was Kareem Hunt or Damian Williams. Look, he has great teammates. That shouldn't take away from his candidacy as MVP. He has better teammates than Aaron Rodgers. Therefore, Aaron Rodgers is more important to his team. I hate to tell everyone, I really just hate to tell everyone, best and most valuable, insofar as there are such things as synonyms, right? Because every word has a nuance that another word doesn't have. That's why you have two different words for it. Value and best, it couldn't be a closer synonym. So I'm not giving extra credit to the guy who has lesser teammates. Unless you see Aaron Rodgers and go, actually, Rodgers is outplaying Mahomes. And the fact that Mahomes has better teammates is masking that. That's something else. We can talk about that. I don't think that's true, but that could be a case you could make. Diego just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. DJ in Denver, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max, big fan. Watch First Take every morning. I got to know, though, it's a big win yesterday versus Aaron Rodgers and a lot of divisional wins with the Colts being number one in AFC South now. Do you think they have an actual chance in this year's postseason?
Here's the problem. In sports, what I would preach with a certain player is patience, 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 patience. And then when you run out of patience, more patience. And that's how I was with Phillip Rivers his whole career. I thought he was fantastic. I rooted for him. He came out in that Eli Roethlisberger class. I didn't want him to be the only one without a championship. I thought he was tough as nails, family guy, like the whole thing. Lot to like. But too often he came up small when it mattered most. Now, maybe that's an organizational thing. Maybe that issue was really a Chargers issue. Because there's some snake-bit franchise, and the Chargers and the Falcons now, right, are two teams who seem to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Maybe now that he's away from that franchise, he's going to be all right. I'd love to see it. I would love to see Phillip Rivers win a championship. And if that's the case, if it's really more of a he's with the Chargers and his snake bit somehow versus, and now he's with the Colts, he could be okay. And it's really not an indication of some intrinsic inability that he has or lack of ability that he has to make the big play when it matters. Then yeah, if Phillip Rivers doesn't have a problem winning the big game on this Colts team and the way he's been playing very well. Yeah, the Colts are live. I can't believe I'm saying it, but they are. I mean, Colts are a good team on paper, but Phillip Rivers under center has contributed to their excellence this year at his age. Last take coming up on the Max Kellerman Show, 888 say ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. To the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker, presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Monday Night Football Preview is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Tom Brady and Aaron Donald Tom Brady hopes they don't meet for the third time, and the first since the Super Bowl matchup. How long ago was this now? We got to go back to every bit of, I'm going to say 3 Super Bowls. 3 Super Bowls, something like that? 2 Super Bowls, I guess. It's a matchup of one of the best quarterbacks of all time, certainly the GOAT, and the best defensive tackle I've ever seen. Aaron Donald's on a short list of the greatest defenders of all time. To me, that list starts with Lawrence Taylor. There's Deion Sanders, and Aaron Donald's right there with Bruce Smith and Reggie White and Ray Lewis. Anyone else you want to mention? J.J. Watt. Tom Brady's won both games against Aaron Donald, by the way. But I don't really think it comes down to the Rams' defense versus the Bucs' offense. I think it's the Bucs' defense versus the Rams offense. Rams have to go back and forth, make these cross-country trips. And the Bucs have an elite defense. And Goff is not a great quarterback. He's a nice quarterback. He's not a great one. All right, how much time do I have to take calls on Last Take here? All right, I'm going to sneak a couple in. Dr. Pepper call-in line. Cody in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show.
Hey there. I think the Lakers are way too good for no good reason. They're bringing back some veterans, pulling them quick like Wesley Matthews and then Keith Morris recently. Just kind of talking trash to the Clippers across town in the basement.
I mean, I don't know. What's your point? That the Lakers, when you say no good the Lakers are too good? Yes, they're the best team in basketball. At this moment that we're talking, still no team has caught them in terms of like off-season moves that would make you favor them over the Lakers.
Yeah.
By the way, the Monday Night Football preview is brought to you by Progressive Insurance, with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Cody's still there. Cody, what else you got? They're almost too good, but what's the point? What's the take? He's gone. Ray in Los Angeles, you're on the Max Kellerman Show.
Hey, Max, what's up? I knew you weren't going to dog me like that. I'll tell you something. As good as Rob Pelinka did, he got hoodwinked on Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol is done. If you watch him in Toronto, he's no longer the Marc Gasol of 3 years ago. He can in no way replicate what the Lakers lost in terms of the rim protection of JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Those guys were purpose-built. They love to challenge at the rim, blocking alter shots. The Lakers don't have that anymore. And Marc Gasol is more or less become just kind of a pick and pop, kind of a stretch big, which really you already have, AD there for that. I don't think there's a lot of meat on the bone there. Gasol's name rings out in L.A. I get it. But I think they would have done better trying to pick the Clippers' pocket and get a guy like Zubac back, who is just a pure big.
Well, look, I hear what you're saying, but Gasol doesn't play 30 minutes a game. He plays like 25, 26 minutes a game, and he averages like a block a game still. He's not like the thing about JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard is they could give you that not only athletic kind of like physical presence in the paint, but that kind of energy that even though they're older of like that young man energy. And Marc Gasol is not that kind of player, but who says you need to round out the roster precisely the way he did last year? Gasol can rim protect, and he can stretch the floor. And also, he can play defense. It's not the defense that shows up necessarily in blocked shots or rebounds. But in the modern NBA, it's not the only thing you need. So, for 25 minutes a game, Gasol makes your team better, you would think, unless he falls off further and faster.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I like the Gasol. All right, listen, that's all. I know you waited a long time. Unfortunately, we're out of time. And Shanae and Golick Jr. are up next. I recommend you keep the radio right where it is. That's an entertaining program. Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. I will be back at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Until then, I'm sorry, folks. That's all.